G'day, Mike from Australian Mountain Bike Magazine. Got the Cube Stereo Hybrid 140 HPC Pro on test. Got the big Bosch motor, good to go. G'day, Mike from A&B. Got the Cube Stereo Hybrid HPC 140 Pro on test at the moment. It's a 140mm trail bike with the Bosch Performance CX drive motor in it. It sells for $74.99 from Cube's exclusive importer, which is 99 Bikes, and you'll get an even better rate if you sign up to their Club 99. But let's get into the review. So I've had a ton of fun riding the Cube Stereo Hybrid that I've got here. It's a 140mm trail bike with carbon mainframe, but I think you're probably also going to find this is one of the cheapest bikes on the market with the Bosch Performance CX Gen 4 motor, which gives you a full 85 Newton meters of torque, and it's got a 625 watt-hour battery in there too. But let's look a little bit closer at the geo and the spec. So Cube do have the stereo in 120, 140 and 160mm travel models. All of them use that 85 Newton meter Bosch Performance CX system. The top models actually use a new smart system which has options for a 750 watt-hour battery. So if you go to the Cube website or the 99 Bikes website, you'll get all the details on those. But the 140 HPC Pro model I have on test has the carbon mainframe with neat internal routing, and there's a 4-bar linkage for 140mm travel in the back. Geo-wise, it has a 66-degree head angle, which is matched with a 140mm travel fork with 51mm offset and a 75-degree seat angle. The reach on the larger that I've got on test has a fairly moderate 457mm reach, which is a little bit shorter if you're looking at really progressive geometry, but this is a trail bike. It's not a hard-hitting enduro bike. And the stays are actually 457mm as well, so it's pretty stable in the back, but that longer stay on a full power e-bike really helps traction when you're climbing. Ends up with a 1231mm wheelbase, so it's stable but doesn't handle like a bus, which is a good thing. So up front, Cube spec the RockShox Recon Silver RL fork, which has got steel legs for being e-mountain bike specific. They are 32mm legs, so I was a little bit curious about that. I know they're made of steel, not alloy, but I mean, I ride a 34mm leg fork on my XC bike, so I was wondering how that'd go. And it does have the Solo Air cartridge, so it's got an air spring, you've got rebound adjust, and you can wind it to lock out. In the back, the RockShox Deluxe Select shock has a trunnion mount and rebound control so you can really get your air settings dialed and make sure it's not acting like a pogo fork. Group set is a Shimano Deore 11-speed group with 11 to 51 for a wide range out the back. Super solid performance for the whole test from that, and braking's handled by the Magura MT30 brakes with big 203mm rotors and the 4-piston stoppers. The wheels are a bit of a home brand, but they are Alex rims with 32 holes with eyeletted spokes as well, so the tension can be nice and tight. They do have a 30mm internal. Unfortunately, it's just regular rim tape in there. It's not tubeless tape. So you will need to bring your own tubeless tape and valves or get your shop to do that for you. Tyres, I really like the tread pattern, the knobby nicks in the 2.6-inch size, but it is just the performance casing. It's paper thin, to be honest. It's like not really good enough for an e-bike, but it's an easy change. If you are going to be riding rockier trails, I'd get that sorted out with a tubeless kit before you leave the bike shop. Cockpit's pretty basic, but works exactly as it needs to with a 120mm Cube in-house dropper, 76cm bars and a short and pretty sturdy stem with some lock-on grips. Thankfully, Cube spec some 165mm cranks, so with a nice centered position on the bike, it's easy just to keep the motor whirring and keep the support level where you want it. As for controlling the Bosch system, they use a Purion head mount or head unit. It's got easy thumb toggles to control the 4 main settings. Obviously beyond off, you go to Eco, Tour, e-mountain bike and Turbo. E-mountain bike is that dynamic range, so it's going to really respond up to a turbo level support depending what you're putting in. You can go to a Bosch Diagnostic Center and get Tour Plus mode installed as a software, which does a similar thing to the e-mountain bike mode, but in a slightly lower support system. If you're after getting the most out of your 625 watt-hour battery, I would definitely look at this. And that battery can be removed by key, but it's got a really simple, just press button cover on the down tube to get out of it. That carbon mainframe, you can also fit a whole water bottle in there. Due to the shape of the frame, there is clearance. That's not a given on an e-bike, so I think kudos to Cube for making sure you can fit that in. Thankfully, there's an easy to get to charge port, and even though I've washed this bike with a hose plenty of times, it's been nice and well sealed from the weather. I guess after that, I chucked it on the scales before putting pedals on. This bike came in large at 24.3 kilos, so obviously it's not a crazy light bike, but it's far, far from the heaviest I've tested. So yeah, let's go take it to the trails. So on Cube's website, they state that the Stereo Hybrid 140 is a versatile trail tamer. It sounds a little bit generic, but after riding it for a number of weeks, I'd agree. You know, it's 140mm travel, 29er trail bike with a high quality support system and a good parts spec that really lets you do a lot of different riding. So it's a pretty handy bike to own for just about any trail area in Australia, unless you're going to go to a gravity park. Cube have done a great job putting a bike together with the Bosch Performance CX system and such a well thought out parts kit for $74.99. I did find the position on the bike was fairly centered compared to what I would normally run and what I prefer to run a longer reach, but I think on this e-bike where you want to keep the cadence up to keep the support level high for whatever mode you're in, that actually really works, and it keeps you right in the center of the wheelbase too, so it actually makes a whole lot of sense. Like I prefer the longer reach, but if this was a 24 kilo bike with a much longer reach, it's going to be a lot of effort to keep riding hard if that's what you're wanting to do. And I also found that that longer wheelbase kept the rear wheel planted and gripping on the steeper climbs, and that's where your 85 Newton meter of torque really makes a difference. Like this bike absolutely hauls when you just need to go up steep climbs to get back to the descending trails. I also think that geometry suits a wider variety of riders as well, and that's because you are getting so much bike at a relatively good value at $74.99. That's an important thing for Cube to have considered. If you want more travel, if you want more advanced geo, then look to one of the Cube's HPC 160 models. So they have longer reach, more aggressive geometry, and 160 mils of travel and the componentry to suit. So if you want more bike, go check those models out because they're on the market and ready to be ridden. So really the Stereo Hybrid 140 suits riders who want to go and ride more trails with capable suspension and with a high quality support package. I did have my concerns about the suspension fork though. Again, 32mm leg forks, not that much option for customization. I hit up the RockShox Trailhead app for tuning. You just scan in or type in the serial number on the back of the fork, plug in your weight, whether it's on an e-bike, and that's weight in kit. And I think it gave me 101 PSI and a rebound setting. I still found that too soft. I was really pushing through a lot of the travel. So I upped that by about 15% and I was way happier with how the bike was riding. It was staying high in its travel when it was really rough. Obviously, not chattering over it. And I think I changed my tune actually. I just thought it was going to be too flexy, but the 32mm legs are steel, so they're heavy, but you've got the support system, and it does mean that you've got a pretty good handling fork on the front. But yeah, certainly didn't reflect what my initial expectations were. I thought I was going to be a bit let down, but it ended up coming to the party. On the steeper and the looser descents, the Cube was fine, but with the repeated hits at speed, I did tend to find the limits of the bike. So again, if you are wanting something with a little bit more progressive geometry and suitable for very aggressive riding, I'd look at something else. But general trail riding, like a lot of blue trails and high-speed flow trails or rockier trails, it's a really fun bike. It was a blast to tackle the descents, and I would have preferred a higher quality casing on the tyres because I did have to run them with tubes and I was very wary of slicing them open, but that is an easy kind of upgrade to do at the store to make sure you've got rubber to suit your riding and your trails before you roll out the front door. As for the support system, with the Bosch Performance CX system, most of the riding I did was in the tour mode. You've got Eco, which some people say kind of negates the weight of an e-bike, and I'd agree. You can get heaps of distance on Eco. Then Tour, and then e-mountain bike, which is the dynamic mode, and Turbo. For most part, unless I was wanting to blast up a fire trail climb away from friends, turbo's to me almost useless. E-mountain bike is your set and forget mode. It will give you all that assistance that you want, but it is just going to let you soft pedal if you want to. But on flatter trails, like a lot of the riding I did was at Hidden Vale Adventure Park on some mellow climbs, Tour was awesome because it wouldn't blast you out of a corner and so you had to kind of brake on exit, but it gave you lots of support and really allowed you to get a lot of battery life. I think I did a 45k ride there with about 1300 meters and I used 40% of the battery. So you really can get the most out of the 625 watt hour battery if you think about what modes you are using. Having also ridden some mid-power e-mountain bikes recently, which I think are a fantastic addition to the e-bike market, there is no denying the level of support you get on the climbs with an 85 Newton meter support like with the Bosch system. To just punch it up climbs to get more descents in, there's nothing like just having it on the e-mountain bike mode, high cadence and blasting up a climb. It's night and day between that, something like this Cube and a mid-power bike. So depends what you want to use your e-bike for. If you want that high level of support to get more descents in and more flow trails, this is the kind of system you should be looking at. I was also really impressed with the Deore group set on this bike. So that's the 11-speed Deore. Some people might be surprised to get an 11-speed group set on a $7,500 e-bike, but it's got the range and it's hardware and gear with the Deore group set. I mean, it doesn't have the slick shift of a Hyperglide Plus 12-speed Shimano group set, but I thought it gave me all the range I needed with secure shifting throughout the whole test. I was also really happy with the Magura brakes. Plenty of stopping power. They're plastic levers, but I didn't find that I had undue flex, and I certainly wasn't under braked at any point. I think all up, I found that the Cube was a really capable trail bike. If you're wanting to get into the e-mountain bike space, or you just want a bike that's going to give you that e-mountain bike support for general mountain biking, it is exactly what you should be looking at. If you want to get something to really push your limits and the bike's limits on some very demanding trails, you'd need to look at one of the 160 models, even the Action Team, when that one makes it to Australia as well, with the top spec on there. But as it is a great e-mountain bike to get out and get exploring and have up to a whole day on the trails. So it's always a question of what range will you get for an e-bike. So being a 85 Newton meter Bosch system with a 625 watt hour battery, your chances of having a short and fast ride are quite good, or you can also go out all day in a low setting. So it really depends how you're going to ride it. With the settings that you've got on offer, if you stuck to around the tour mode and you didn't have crazy amounts of climbing, you're going to get that 75 kilometer ride in there, but you can probably burn through it in a 2.5 hour ride if you're doing a lot of turbo full gas climbing. So it really comes down to how you're going to ride it and the weight of the rider as well. But it is a system that you can get a lot out of. I think the longest ride I did on it was about 60k with about 1600 meters of climbing, and I still had 40% battery life left. So if you've got a bit of battery hesitation on getting stuck out, just always refer to the head unit. You'll know how much you've got left, and you can always back it down a mode if you're not sure. So a lot of people getting an e-bike want a longer travel one so they can really rail the descents, which makes a whole lot of sense. But the e-bike's got to be able to climb because you're getting it to go uphill. And so I found the suspension system on the Cube Stereo Hybrid really good. I actually looked down to the shock and it was only rebound, and I thought, am I going to be able to want to firm that up? But running 25% sag, I found it had all the support I needed on the descents, but seated pedaling, it was as stable as I wanted. Now an e-bike really rewards staying seated for your pedaling, keeping the cadence high to keep the support high. And in that case, I got all the traction I wanted and all the ongoing support from the bike. I mean, you can get out of the seat and punch it to get up over ledges. And obviously there's a slight technique change for doing that on an e-bike, and it did it really well. But I found in general, I was really impressed with how well this climbed, even on the looser terrain and with steeper step-ups. It's a bit different to doing on, say, a 12 or 13 kilo trail bike. You need to put in a little bit more effort on the run-up to get that support working and to get the momentum to go up and over. But you can really take this bike to a whole lot of places once you've got used to what you need to do to get the support out of an e-bike on the technical climbs. So 140mm travel 29er, I think it's a kind of bike you can take to a lot of places in Australia to ride. On the descents, I found it was really happy on those kind of moderate to quite fast descents. Being a little bit shorter than what I'd normally run, and obviously heavier with the weight centered low with the battery and motor, it really responds well to centered input too. So it's not the kind of bike that you're just going to hang off the back of. It does better loading up the suspension to use to pop from one line to the next, and that really also helps use that weight of the bike too to kind of be in one position and landing into your next line and carrying it through. And it was a whole lot of fun to do that, especially once I had the fork set up how I wanted it to maintain that ride height and offer the support needed. You do need to focus on getting your tyre and suspension settings bang on an e-bike, because you've got much more weight behind it, and it really does punish if you set up things too soft. So the whole e-mountain bike marketplace is evolving at a rate of knots. A bike like the Cube Stereo Hybrid HPC Pro really sits right in the middle of the market, in that it's a trail bike, 140 mils of travel on 29er wheels with full power 85 Newton meter Bosch system in there. You can get bigger travel bikes with the same kind of power or mid power. You can get shorter travel bikes with mid power systems as well, and they'll really suit other people for what they want to get out of their riding. But for general trail riding in a lot of Australia, it's hard to go past a bike like this, partly because of the value at $74.99, and that's before looking at any of the discounts for a Club 99 membership, which is $5, and the fact that it's got the Bosch Performance CX system in there as well. So that system has got great support globally, and you can upgrade the head unit if you like. It's got the 625 watt-hour battery in there too, which gives you plenty of life. But I think Cube have really knocked it out of the park with the spec on this one. With a few smart upgrades down the track, this is a bike that can probably grow with you if you did something around the tyres with the casings and tubeless compatibility. And you could even look at a slightly more advanced fork to get a few more tuning options there. But this bike is good to go. You're going to have a lot of fun riding trail with it, but it's something you can kind of take into the future as well. If you need more travel, you need more progressive geometry, just take a look at one of the 160mm options instead. If you've got any extra questions about Cube's stereo hybrid range, drop them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can catch our next video as well. Thanks for watching.